And aloha, folks. Welcome to this latest edition of 5 Questions, where we ask community leaders 5 questions. And today is a great opportunity to get caught up with Cliff Slater of HonoluluTraffic.com and beyond. Cliff, aloha to you.
Aloha to you, Rick.
Well, 5 questions, Cliff, that's what it's about. And before we jump in, would you mind giving us a brief description of HonoluluTraffic.com?
We are these days, it's a community-wide effort to keep the elevated rail out of the city. And we've been at it now for, this time around about 6 or 7 years. And if you go back to the beginning, the last time, we've been at it for about 26 years.
Interesting. We will chat about that in just a bit. But I think for our listeners, Cliff, the number one question might be, why such opposition to this rail project?
Well, if anybody's been on our website, honolulutraffic.com, and seen the rendering that the architects did of the downtown rail station, you really get some understanding of how bad this will be for the city environmentally, and just not environmentally, but the way it is so oppressive, and it's not just this one. Anytime anyone has put in an elevated rail line through the center of a town, it's led to very detrimental effects on the population. That's why they took them down in New York. That's why they did not complete the Embarcadero Freeway in San Francisco. And in fact, a few years ago, they took where it had begun near the ferry building. They took it down, and it really just opened up the sky to that whole area, and it's just totally transformed it.
We understand, again, you can log on to honolulutraffic.com to really read more of the details behind our first question. So thanks for that, Cliff, very much. Let's go to question number 2, and you alluded to it in our opening. What are some of the similarities and perhaps even differences from the rail debate of 1992 that culminated with a vote in 1992 to today?
Well, I think we understand it more today. We were really flailing around in those days, and we did it strictly on trying to educate the city council, which, in my view, were more open to change in those days than they are today. And we succeeded. One by one, the city council people changed their minds, culminating in September 1992 when Reen Mancho was the final one that provided the majority of the council in opposition to rail.
Any particular differences that strike out to you in regard to the issues that were debated then and as they apply today?
There's more concern. I think this time about the Native Hawaiian burial grounds. That's an issue. I think we're really more aware today of the environmental side of it, of what it would do to the city. In those days, while we were talking about the effect that the elevated rail would have, the big issue, of course, was and still is the cost. Mm-hmm. The cost, what the city says the cost will be, and what it actually will be, which will be another couple of $1 billion. It's too big for our city. We would be the smallest metro area with a rail line in the United States by a long way. And as far as an elevated or heavy rail line, there's nothing in the United States or internationally of this type of intrusive rail line in a city of less than a 4 million population. And our population, if you include the entire island, is only 900,000. So it's just out of all proportion. It's out of all proportion environmentally. It's out of all proportion economically.
We're talking with Cliff Slater, HonoluluTraffic.com. It's our edition of 5 Questions, heard right here on KHVH Radio, KHVHradio.com, and HawaiiReporter.com. And we're at question number 3. Cliff, you are involved in a federal lawsuit regarding rail. What's the basis of this suit? Remind us, please, and also what is the status as of today?
Well, the basis of the suit is that it clearly does not meet the federal environmental law, and in fact, as our attorney said about this project, and because if you go back to the early '60s. Everybody was opposed to federally funded freeways coming into town. Rail lines, of course, and for that purpose are no different. And so, at that time, the environmental laws, certain of the environmental laws, were written to protect us from that kind of thing. And this is what our attorney says. This kind of project in Honolulu is exactly the kind of project that the environmental laws were designed to protect us from. And the city did not look at all the potential alternatives. They did not study, and still not studied, the exact locations of the Native Hawaiian burial sites. Mm-hmm. And the environmental laws require that you first off study all the historic places, including burial sites, and then you look at the alternatives, and then you match them up so that you finish up with a project that is the, quote, environmentally preferable alternative. They didn't do that, so that we finished up with what was the environmentally most detrimental alternative, elevated rail. And that's where we are. We think we'll prevail. And we will see as this goes along.
Talking with Cliff Slater of HonoluluTraffic.com, and we're involved in our edition of 5 Questions. Very briefly, Cliff, the status of the suit. Are there any dates that we should be aware of at this time?
Well, the first one is short. Any time now, the Justice Department, U.S. Justice Department, will provide us with what is called the administrative record, which is every piece of paper that's dealt with this particular subject over the last, say, 7 years. Mm-hmm. We then go through that and see if there's anything in there that we were not aware of. And I'm sure there will be things, okay, because these are emails back and forth from the city to the federal government, et cetera. And so then at the same time, the federal government has to respond to our complaint, which we made nearly 2 months ago now, and they have to do that by the 12th of this month, I think it is, and then we have 30 days to respond to them, and then they have 30 days to respond to us, and then we're in court.
I understand. Thank you for that, Cliff. We continue on with question number 4 of the 5 questions. The 2008 vote, regarding rail is cited as the definitive voice of our community who are supporters of the rail project. Do you accept or reject this notion, Cliff?
Oh, I really reject it, Rick, for a number of things. First off, the public was totally unaware that the city projects that traffic congestion will be worse with rail in the future than it is today. they're not aware that when the city says there will be 11% reduction in traffic, that what they really mean is that it would be 11% less than it would be if we didn't do anything at all, okay, but not that it's 11% less than it is today. Okay, so we know that that's what the general population believes because an advertiser survey was done around the time of that referendum, and it was very, very clear. The city has now come clean on it and said that traffic congestion will be worse in the future, and I think that when the media generally are letting people know that, particularly our print media, I think you'll see a dramatic turnaround in attitudes towards it. Because what people want is a reduction in today's level of traffic congestion, and they're not going to get that with rail.
We're talking with Cliff Slater, HonoluluTraffic.com. It is 5 Questions here on KHVH Radio, KHVHradio.com, and, of course, on HawaiiReporter.com as well. Our final question, Cliff, and maybe a little esoteric, but sure I'd like to hear your response. Given what we've discussed so far, can you describe briefly the ideal transportation system that would be most beneficial to not only the commuters and travelers, but also to the taxpayers of Honolulu?
Well, there's all kinds of opinions on that, especially even among our supporters. Our supporters are generally and totally in agreement that we don't want elevated rail through town. I mean, that's very clear. That's what we're all agreed on. When you start talking about alternatives, then there are different opinions. Dr. Prevodoris and I and I think most of our supporters are in favor of hot lanes, which would be a reversible, elevated 2 or 3 lane highway coming in from the Everplain area in towards downtown with off ramps, on ramps along the way, where buses and van pools have priority, and the space that's not used would be used for automobiles, and that would lead to paying a toll, and that would lead to significantly different traffic congestion from what we currently experience.
Mm-hmm. It's been a great conversation. I would like to, just as a quick aside, and that is we have folks from the mainland and beyond that do listen, Cliff. Can you put, just briefly before we go, share any perspective that those on the mainland and other communities should know about how Honolulu is addressing this rail issue and how the process and the personalities and players might be a little bit different from rail projects that are existing or proposed in other cities?
Well, I think we've been more organized in our approach to this issue. We've documented it thoroughly. We've made all the documents available to whoever wants it, and we've provided analysis of it. We've used the FOIA process, Freedom of Information Act, to get more material out, which we can provide to the public, and I think we've done a better job of it. If results are anything, we fought off the first one in '92, and I'm sure we're going to be successful with this one.
And on that note, Cliff Slater of HonoluluTraffic.com. You can log in and follow Cliff and his supporters in regard to this entire issue of the rail project in Honolulu. Well, Cliff, thank you very, very much as always. Always good to chat with you.
Well, thank you for having me, Rick.
And can't wait till the next time. Take care.
Okay.
Thanks, Cliff.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.